Lila was a woman like no other. At 7'3", she towered above most people around her, a giant in a world that wasn't built for giants. Since childhood, her height was something she struggled with. In school, she stood out for reasons she didn't always want. Her classmates, mostly shorter and smaller than her, would often stare, point, and sometimes laugh. It wasn't always cruel, but it was uncomfortable. Lila's size made her feel different, and that feeling never quite went away. Her parents, loving but unsure of how to help her navigate the world, did their best to protect her. They always made sure she had everything she needed, but even they couldn't escape the constant reminders of Lila's size. People would comment wherever they went. "She's going to be a basketball player," they'd say, or "she must be really strong." But none of those comments ever felt good. To Lila, they were just constant reminders that she was different, and not in a way that made her feel proud. As Lila grew older, things didn't get easier. The world was designed for people who were average size, and Lila was anything but that. She couldn't find clothes that fit. Shoes were a constant struggle. She had to order custom pairs, and even then, they didn't always feel right. When she sat down at a table, her knees often hit it in uncomfortable ways, and she had to adjust everything around her just to feel somewhat at ease. Even public spaces like buses or movie theaters felt like they weren't meant for her. It was as if she was always in the way, a constant reminder that the world wasn't built for people like her. But it wasn't just the physical struggles that hurt Lila. The emotional weight of being different was heavier. Every day she battled feelings of loneliness and isolation. She dreamed of a life where she could feel normal, where she wouldn't have to think twice before stepping into a room. But even more than that, Lila dreamed of something deeper. She dreamed of becoming a mother. Since she was young, Lila imagined having children. She dreamed of holding a tiny baby in her arms, seeing the love in her child's eyes and experiencing the joy of motherhood. But there was one thing that haunted her: her size. It was always there, standing in the way of her dreams. Deep down, Lila believed that because of her height, it would be impossible for her to have a baby. It wasn't just about her size. It was the fears that came with it. Could she carry a child? Would her body even be able to handle the changes that come with pregnancy? These questions plagued her thoughts, and the more she thought about it, the more impossible motherhood seemed. As Lila entered her 20s, her fear grew. She watched her friends get married and have children. They seemed to glide through life, effortlessly fitting into society's expectations. But Lila was different. While they held their newborns with ease, Lila couldn't even imagine carrying one. The idea of pregnancy terrified her. Doctors had told her that the physical strain of carrying a baby might be too much for her body, that her frame might not be able to support the growth of a child. She began to believe them. It was hard not to. Even her family, while loving and supportive, couldn't deny the reality that Lila's size made certain things more difficult. At family gatherings, they would often talk about the future, about children, about marriages, and about the lives everyone would build. And yet, when Lila thought about it, her heart would ache. She knew in her deepest thoughts that the dream of becoming a mother was slipping further and further away. Lila tried to push the thoughts away. She focused on her career, on friendships, on hobbies. She built a life that was fulfilling in many ways. But in the quiet moments when no one was around to see, she would think of motherhood again. It was always there, a silent hope that she couldn't let go of. But each time she thought about it, the voice of doubt would grow louder. "You're too big. It's not possible." One evening, as Lila was sitting in her apartment, watching the rain fall outside, she received a message from an old friend, Ethan. They had known each other for years, though they'd never been particularly close. But something had changed in their conversations over the past few months. Ethan had always been kind, but there was something more now. He had started reaching out more often, checking in with her and asking about her life. His messages weren't just friendly, they were thoughtful and genuine. That night, as she read through his message, Lila felt something stir in her heart. Ethan had always made her feel comfortable, but lately he seemed to see her in a way no one else did. He didn't see her size first. He saw her heart, her strength, her intelligence, and the woman she was beyond just her height. She hesitated before replying, unsure of how much to share. But something in her wanted to open up, to tell him about the fear she had carried for so long. The fear that she would never be able to have children. With trembling hands, Lila typed the message. She told him about her dreams of becoming a mother and how over the years she had come to believe that it was something she would never achieve. She confessed the doubts that had followed her like a shadow, reminding her every day that she wasn't like other women. She couldn't carry a baby. She couldn't be a mother. Ethan's response came quickly, and as Lila read it, a tear fell down her cheek. His words were filled with warmth and reassurance. He didn't dismiss her fears. He didn't tell her to stop worrying or brush aside her concerns. Instead, he told her that she was stronger than she realized and that together, they could face anything. Ethan didn't care about her size. What mattered to him was who she was inside. The kind, loving, intelligent woman who deserved every chance to have the life she wanted, including motherhood. Lila was stunned. She had never felt so understood. For the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, her dream of becoming a mother wasn't impossible. Ethan's belief in her, his unwavering support, made her see something she hadn't before. She wasn't alone. The journey would be hard, she knew. The challenges would be real, and there would be moments of doubt. But for the first time, Lila felt hope. Hope that maybe she could have a family, hope that maybe she could hold a baby of her own. With Ethan's encouragement, she started to consider the possibility that her dream might not be so far out of reach after all. Lila's heart was full of emotions that she couldn't fully explain. Ethan's message had sparked something inside her, a tiny flame of hope that for so long had been buried under layers of fear and doubt. The truth was, Lila had spent years convincing herself that motherhood wasn't something she could ever have. But now for the first time she wondered if maybe, just maybe, it was still possible. After their long conversation that evening, Lila and Ethan began to talk more regularly. What started as friendly messages turned into long conversations on the phone, and soon they were meeting up for coffee and walks in the park. Every time they met, Lila felt more and more drawn to Ethan. There was something about the way he listened to her, the way he made her feel seen for who she truly was, beyond her height or her fears. Ethan, for his part, was captivated by Lila's strength and kindness. He admired her intelligence and how she faced the world with resilience, despite the many challenges she encountered. To him, Lila wasn't just a woman who stood taller than most. She was someone who had a heart that matched the size of her frame. Over time, he started to understand her better. Her sense of self was shaped by years of overcoming obstacles, and she carried that with her every day. As their relationship deepened, Lila began to feel more comfortable opening up about her fears. One evening, as they sat together at a small cafe, Lila took a deep breath and decided to share her deepest worry with Ethan. Her voice shook slightly as she spoke. "Ethan, I've always dreamed of being a mother," she said quietly, her fingers nervously tracing the edge of her coffee cup, "but I don't think I can. I've been told my body is too big for it. I've always been afraid that I could never carry a child, that it would be too much for me." Ethan listened carefully, his eyes soft with understanding. He didn't interrupt, allowing her to speak freely as though he knew this was something she needed to get off her chest. When she finished, he took her hand gently in his and squeezed it. "Lila," he began, his voice full of conviction, "I understand your fears, but I also know that you're stronger than you give yourself credit for. Just because it's hard doesn't mean it's impossible. If this is something you truly want, I'm with you, every step of the way." Lila felt a warmth spread through her chest. She had spent so long feeling alone in her fears, believing that no one could understand what it felt like to carry such a heavy burden. But now, sitting across from Ethan, she realized she wasn't alone. His words were like a balm to her wounded heart, soothing the doubts that had plagued her for so many years. Over the following weeks, Lila and Ethan talked more about their future. They shared their hopes, their dreams, and their fears. Ethan was determined to help Lila achieve her dream of becoming a mother. He didn't have all the answers, but he was ready to support her in any way he could. But even with Ethan's unwavering support, Lila couldn't completely silence the fears that still lingered in her mind. She was afraid that her body wouldn't be able to handle pregnancy, that it would break under the pressure. She had heard horror stories of women who faced complications because of their size, and those stories only fueled her anxiety. What if she was putting herself and her future child at risk? What if she was being selfish by wanting something that might not be possible? Ethan could see the doubt in her eyes. He knew that while words could provide comfort, What Lila needed most was practical support. So, one afternoon, he suggested something that Lila hadn't considered before. Have you thought about seeing a specialist? Someone who has experience with high-risk pregnancies? Someone who might be able to help you figure out if this is possible? Lila hesitated. The idea of going to another doctor only to hear more bad news was overwhelming. But as she looked into Ethan's eyes, she realized that maybe, just maybe, it was worth trying. Ethan had a way of making her feel braver than she had ever felt before, as though she could face the world and its challenges head-on. He believed in her, and that belief gave her the courage to believe in herself, too. So after much thought and careful consideration, Lila made the decision to see a renowned specialist in high-risk pregnancies, Dr. Mallory. The appointment was set for the following week, and although Lila was nervous, she was also hopeful. The idea of getting professional advice from someone who had dealt with unique situations like hers made her feel more confident. If anyone could help her navigate the possibility of becoming a mother, it was a doctor who truly understood the complexities of her situation. The day of the appointment arrived, and Lila found herself sitting in the waiting room, her heart racing. She was surrounded by other expectant mothers, some of them with round bellies and others holding tiny newborns. For a moment, Lila felt like an outsider. She wasn't like these women. She wasn't going to walk out of here with news of a pregnancy. She was just trying to figure out if that was even a possibility. When Dr. Mallory finally called her in, Lila took a deep breath and walked into the office. The doctor was warm and welcoming, and her calm demeanor instantly put Lila at ease. After explaining her concerns and her history, Lila was surprised by Dr. Mallory's response. "Lila, I understand your worries, and they're completely valid," Dr. Mallory said gently. "But I also believe that with the right care, the right support, and some careful planning, pregnancy can be possible for you. It won't be easy, but it's not impossible. We can work together to create a plan that takes into account your unique body and the needs of a growing child." Lila felt a wave of relief wash over her. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to believe that she could have a child. It wasn't going to be a simple path, but it was a path worth walking. That evening, Lila called Ethan to share the news. She could hear the excitement in his voice as she told him what Dr. Mallory had said. He was overjoyed, and his support only deepened. "I knew you could do this," he said. "We'll take it one step at a time. Whatever you need, I'm here." Lila smiled, feeling a sense of calm she hadn't known in years. With Ethan by her side and the guidance of Dr. Mallory, she began to see a new future. A future where motherhood was no longer just a dream, but a possibility. And as they continued their journey together, Lila knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, she was ready to face them, with love, hope, and the strength she had always carried within her. Lila's journey toward motherhood had only just begun, but with every passing day her hope grew stronger. After the visit to Dr. Mallory, she felt a sense of clarity that had been missing for so long. The doctor's calm assurance gave Lila the confidence to believe in a future she had once thought impossible. But even though she had taken the first step toward turning her dream into reality, the road ahead was far from easy. The next few weeks were filled with doctor's appointments, tests, and careful planning. Dr. Mallory had made it clear that Lila's pregnancy would require constant monitoring. Her body was unique, and so the way her pregnancy progressed would need to be carefully watched every step of the way. The specialist laid out a detailed plan, one that included regular visits, a tailored diet, exercise routine, and careful medical oversight. Each detail was designed to ensure the health of both Lila and her future child. At times, the medical instructions felt overwhelming. Lila wasn't used to having so many people involved in her health. She had always been independent, used to navigating the world on her own terms. Now, however, her path was intertwined with a team of doctors, specialists, and even a personal trainer who helped her with exercises designed to keep her body strong and capable of carrying a child. Still, Lila couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement. The dream that had once seemed so far away now felt within her reach. She would follow the plan to the letter, not just because it was her best chance, but because she knew that motherhood was a journey she wanted to take. Ethan, always by her side, was her rock. He supported her in ways she hadn't expected. He attended every doctor's appointment with her, no matter how early or late. He made sure she took her medication on time, helped her prepare healthy meals, and reminded her to take things slow when she felt overwhelmed. His presence was like a steady anchor, calming the storm of worries that occasionally swirled in Lila's mind. One of the hardest things for Lila was learning to trust her body again. After years of thinking it wasn't capable of something as monumental as pregnancy, she had to let go of the belief that her body was a limitation. She had to start seeing it as strong, resilient, and capable. That was a difficult mental shift, and sometimes even the smallest challenges felt like mountains to climb. One evening, after a particularly long and tiring day, Lila collapsed onto the couch, exhausted. Her legs ached and her mind raced with the list of things she still needed to do. Ethan, sensing her frustration, sat beside her, his presence always soothing. He gently placed a hand on her shoulder and smiled softly. "You're doing great, Lila," he said. "Don't forget to give yourself credit. This isn't easy for anyone, and you're handling it like a pro. Just take it one day at a time. You've got this." Lila looked at him, her eyes filled with gratitude. His words were simple, but they meant everything. She had spent so much time thinking about all the ways this journey could go wrong that she hadn't taken a moment to appreciate how far she had come. She was actively working toward her dream, and that was something to be proud of. "I'm just scared, Ethan," Lila admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if something goes wrong? What if I can't do this?" Ethan's expression softened, and he leaned in, wrapping his arms around her. "We're not alone in this, Lila. We've got doctors, we've got support, and most importantly, we've got each other. No matter what happens, I'll be with you every step of the way." Lila closed her eyes, allowing herself to rest in his embrace. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to feel something other than fear: hope. With Ethan's unwavering support and the care of Dr. Mallory's team, she was beginning to believe that she could make her dream of becoming a mother a reality. The next few months passed quickly, filled with doctor's appointments, healthy meals, and more moments of quiet reassurance from Ethan. Lila followed the plan Dr. Mallory had set out for her, and little by little she began to feel stronger. The exercises she did under the guidance of a personal trainer helped her body become more flexible and capable of handling the physical demands of pregnancy. She was amazed at how much her body could do when given the proper care. During this time, Lila also started to connect with other women who were in similar situations. Through a support group for high-risk pregnancies, she met mothers who had faced their own unique challenges. Some were older, some had medical conditions, and others were like Lila, women who had been told that motherhood might not be possible for them. Meeting these women, hearing their stories, and seeing their strength inspired Lila more than she could have imagined. She no longer felt isolated in her journey. These women, who had walked the same difficult road, gave her the strength to believe that she, too, could become a mother. One of the women, Claire, a mother of 2, became a close friend to Lila. Claire had gone through a high-risk pregnancy with her first child and had been told by doctors that she might not survive the birth. But against all odds, she had brought her son into the world and later, a daughter. Claire's story was a reminder to Lila that even when things seemed impossible, hope was never lost. One afternoon, as Lila and Claire sat together in the park, Claire shared some of the wisdom she had gained through her own experiences. "You'll have days where you doubt yourself," she said, her voice filled with compassion. "But you have to remember that just because something's hard doesn't mean it's not worth it. You're doing the hardest thing you can do, and you're doing it because you believe in the possibility of something beautiful." Lila listened intently, feeling a wave of gratitude toward her new friend. Claire's words were simple, but they carried the weight of experience. They reminded Lila that motherhood was never easy, but it was always worth the effort. With every passing day, Lila grew more confident. The fear that had once consumed her began to fade, replaced by an inner strength she hadn't known she possessed. She was still uncertain about the future, still unsure of how everything would unfold, but for the first time she allowed herself to truly believe that she could be a mother. She wasn't just following a plan anymore. She was living her dream step by step. That night, as she and Ethan lay in bed, she turned to him, her eyes glowing with a quiet determination. "I'm ready, Ethan," she whispered. "I'm ready to do this. I'm ready to become a mother." Ethan smiled and kissed her forehead. "I know you are, Lila, and I'll be right here with you every step of the way." As Lila's pregnancy progressed, The excitement of her dream becoming a reality was mixed with the reality of how challenging the journey could be. Every day felt like a small victory, but it also came with its own set of struggles. Still, Lila was determined. She had come so far and she wasn't about to give up now. The early months were a blur of appointments, tests, and constant monitoring. Dr. Mallory was kind but firm. She reminded Lila often that while the pregnancy was possible, it was still high risk. Lila's body was still adjusting, and it needed constant care and attention. There were times when Lila felt overwhelmed by the constant medical checkups, but she also knew they were essential for both her and the baby. The small sacrifices she made, like giving up certain foods, resting more than she was used to, and skipping things she had once enjoyed, were all part of the bigger picture, the chance to become a mother. Ethan, as always, was her constant support. He never once made her feel like her body was a problem. If anything, he encouraged her to see her body as a powerhouse that was capable of incredible things. He went to every doctor's appointment, helped her track her progress, and even made her laugh when things started to feel too heavy. His positive energy was contagious, and Lila often found herself smiling even when she felt exhausted. But no amount of support or optimism could make the pregnancy feel easy. There were days when Lila's body felt like it was giving up. The weight of the baby, the constant changes, the fatigue, it all became overwhelming at times. She had moments when she questioned if she was strong enough to keep going. After all, she wasn't like the other women who breezed through their pregnancies. She was always conscious of her size, her strength, and whether her body could truly handle the demands of carrying a child. One evening, after a particularly long day, Lila found herself lying in bed, her back aching. She hadn't slept well the night before, and the exhaustion had caught up to her. Ethan sat beside her, rubbing her shoulders gently. Lila let out a sigh and closed her eyes. "I'm not sure how much longer I can do this, Ethan," she whispered, her voice full of doubt. "I'm so tired. My body is so tired." Ethan's voice was calm and soothing as he spoke. "Lila, I know it's hard, but you're doing something incredible. This is hard for anyone, but you're handling it with so much strength. We'll take it one day at a time, okay? Don't worry about the end. Just focus on getting through today, and we'll handle tomorrow when it comes." Lila nodded, grateful for his support. Even on her worst days, Ethan was always there to remind her that she was doing something worth fighting for. His words were like a lifeline, helping her hold on when it felt like the weight of the world was on her shoulders. As the months passed, the changes in Lila's body became more noticeable. She had to adjust her routine to accommodate the growing baby. Simple tasks like walking or standing for long periods became more challenging. Her clothes were no longer comfortable, and finding the right shoes was an ongoing struggle. But despite these inconveniences, Lila couldn't help but marvel at the miracle happening inside her. She could feel the baby move, tiny kicks and rolls that made her smile despite the discomfort. Those moments when she felt the baby's presence made it all worth it. During one of her regular checkups, Dr. Mallory conducted an ultrasound to see how the baby was developing. Lila watched the screen, her heart racing with anticipation. When she saw the tiny image of the baby on the screen, her eyes filled with tears. It was real. She was really going to be a mother. The baby had grown and everything looked healthy. The joy she felt in that moment was overwhelming, and for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to relax, if only for a moment. "Everything looks great, Lila," Dr. Mallory said with a smile. "Your body is adjusting wonderfully. Keep doing what you're doing." Lila felt a sense of relief wash over her. She wasn't sure how much longer the road ahead would be, but hearing those words made all the hard work feel worth it. She was doing it. She was truly on the path to becoming a mother. However, the physical toll was still very much a reality. As Lila's pregnancy continued, she began to experience more discomfort. There were days when she struggled to get out of bed, and simple activities like going for a walk or even bending down to tie her shoes became difficult. She had moments of frustration when her body didn't cooperate the way she wanted it to, but every time she thought about giving up, she remembered the dream that had started this journey in the first place. She thought of the baby growing inside her, and the love she already felt for this little life. That thought alone kept her going. Ethan noticed when Lila began to tire more easily. He could see the strain in her eyes, and he knew that even though she was putting on a brave face, the journey was taking its toll. So he stepped in more than ever. He took over household chores without question, made her favorite meals, and found ways to make her laugh even when she didn't feel like smiling. He helped her rest and made sure she didn't push herself too hard. His unwavering presence allowed Lila to focus on what mattered most, her health and the health of the baby. One evening, as they sat together on the couch, Ethan turned to Lila with a thoughtful expression. "I know this has been harder than we both imagined, but I want you to know that I am so proud of you," he said, his voice full of sincerity. "You've shown more strength than I ever could have imagined. You're doing something incredible, and you're doing it with so much heart." Lila smiled at him, her eyes misting over with emotion. "I couldn't do it without you," she replied softly. "You've been my rock, Ethan. I never knew how much I needed someone like you in my life." Ethan gently kissed her forehead, his love for her radiating in that simple gesture. "And I'll be here, Lila, for every step of the way." As the months went by, Lila's confidence in herself grew. She had learned to embrace the changes in her body, accepting the discomforts as part of the process. She knew it wasn't going to be easy, but she also knew it was worth it. Every kick, every ultrasound, every milestone was a reminder of the miracle she was creating. Lila's journey wasn't the same as other women's, but it was hers. It was unique and it was beautiful. With Ethan by her side, she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Each day she grew stronger, more determined, and more certain that she was on the right path. The journey to motherhood had been long, filled with moments of doubt and struggle, but Lila knew that the hardest part was almost over. Soon, she would meet the tiny life that had been growing inside her for all these months, and when that moment finally came, she would hold her baby in her arms, knowing that every sacrifice, every struggle had been worth it. The day Lila had been dreaming of for so long had finally arrived. It was early in the morning when she felt the first sharp contraction. At first, she tried to ignore it, thinking it was just another false alarm. But soon, the contractions grew stronger and closer together. She felt a wave of nervous excitement mixed with disbelief. Was this really happening? Was she finally going to be a mother? Ethan, ever the calm presence, was by her side immediately. He had been through every moment of the journey with Lila, every checkup, every difficult day, every moment of doubt, and now he would be there for the most important moment of all. His face was filled with love and reassurance, but there was also an unmistakable excitement in his eyes. They had both wanted this moment for so long, and now it was finally happening. As the hours passed, Lila's contractions became more intense. Despite the pain, she never felt alone. Ethan held her hand through each wave, encouraging her, telling her how strong she was, reminding her of the amazing thing her body was doing. The hospital room was filled with the sounds of Lila's labored breathing, the gentle beeping of machines, and the soft whispers of Ethan's comforting words. Lila could feel her strength fading, but she held on to one thing. She wanted to meet her baby. She had fought so hard for this moment. All the doubts, all the fears, all the struggles. They seemed small now, just echoes of a time before she knew the strength of her own body. She was ready. "I'm so proud of you," Ethan whispered, wiping a strand of hair from Lila's forehead. His voice was full of emotion, and his eyes were fixed on hers with love. "You're doing it. You're incredible." Lila squeezed his hand, grateful for the reassurance. She had never felt more supported, more loved than in that moment. No matter what happened next, she knew she wasn't alone. She had Ethan, and they had been through so much together. Now they were on the cusp of the greatest adventure of all, parenthood. After hours of intense labor, the moment of truth finally came. Lila's doctor, Dr. Mallory, was there with the nursing team, guiding her through each push, helping her focus, reminding her of the goal, the baby. Lila could feel the baby moving, could feel the tiny life inside her finally making its way into the world. It was as if everything else faded away, and all that mattered was that single moment. With one final push, Lila heard a sound she would never forget. The cry of her baby filled the room, and tears sprang to her eyes. She had done it. After all, the doubt, all the fear, and all the hard work, she had brought her child into the world. Ethan's face lit up with joy. He stood beside Lila, holding her hand, his own tears falling freely. The baby was placed on Lila's chest, and she looked down at the tiny face in awe. She could hardly believe it. She had dreamed of this moment for so long, and now it was real. The little one she had carried inside her, the baby who had been a hope for so many years, was finally here. It was all worth it. Lila kissed the baby's tiny forehead, her heart overflowing with love. "You're here," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "I can't believe you're here." Ethan stood beside her, unable to stop smiling. "We did it," he said softly. "You did it." In that moment, nothing else in the world mattered. The struggles, the challenges, the doubts, they were all behind her now. Lila was a mother. She had become the very thing she once thought was impossible, and nothing could take that away from her. She looked at Ethan, and in his eyes, she saw the same wonder and joy that she felt in her heart. The next few days in the hospital were a blur of new parenthood. Lila and Ethan were learning everything together: how to care for the baby, how to understand its cries, how to make sure it was fed, changed, and comfortable. The lack of sleep was exhausting, and every moment felt like a new challenge. But none of it mattered. They had a beautiful baby to care for, and every moment, no matter how difficult, was filled with love. Lila marveled at how her life had changed in just a few days. She had gone from feeling like an outsider in the world of motherhood to being an active participant in it. She had embraced the reality of being a mother, and every little moment, every coo, every smile, every tiny hand that reached out to her filled her heart with more love than she ever thought possible. One night, as she sat in the rocking chair, holding her baby close to her chest, she felt a deep sense of peace. The baby was asleep, wrapped in a soft blanket, and Lila couldn't help but smile. She had never imagined this moment could feel so perfect, so fulfilling. For the first time in years, the doubt and fear were gone, replaced by a quiet certainty. She had done it. She had become a mother. Ethan walked into the room, his eyes soft as he looked at the two of them. "She's beautiful," he said, his voice full of awe. "You're amazing, Lila. I'm so proud of you." Lila looked up at him, her eyes filled with tears. "I never thought this would happen," she whispered. "But here we are, and it's perfect, it's all perfect." Ethan kissed her gently on the forehead and sat beside her. Together they looked down at their baby, the child they had both dreamed of. The journey had been long, filled with challenges and moments of doubt, but it had all led to this moment. They were parents now, and nothing could take that away from them. In the weeks that followed, Lila and Ethan settled into a new rhythm. The challenges of parenthood were still there, but they didn't seem as insurmountable as before. Every sleepless night, every new hurdle, was easier to face because they were doing it together. And every day, as they watched their baby grow, they felt more and more grateful for the journey that had brought them here. Lila no longer saw herself as someone defined by her size. She saw herself as a mother, strong, capable, and filled with love. And as she looked down at her baby, she knew that she had overcome the impossible. She had defied the odds, faced her fears, and made her dream come true. The impossible had happened. And now Lila had everything she had ever wanted: a family, a future, and the love that would carry her through every challenge life would throw her way.